Claire Hammond had always been a city girl, but in the summer of 2024, she and her partner, Rhys, traded the bustle of Cardiff for a small stone house in the Welsh countryside, nestled in a valley near Snowdonia. The house was old, its slate roof mossy, its walls weathered by decades of wind and rain. Two large windows, one in the kitchen overlooking a tangled garden, the other in the bedroom facing a narrow lane, let in the pale light of the Welsh hills. Claire, 28, was practical, her dark hair usually tied back, her hazel eyes sharp with skepticism. She didn't believe in ghosts or old wives' tales, but the quiet of the countryside, broken only by the wind and distant sheep, felt like a balm after years of urban noise. Rhys, a musician with a boyish grin, was often away for gigs, leaving Claire to settle into their new home alone. The house was cozy, if creaky, with a wood-burning stove and shelves cluttered with Claire's books and Rhys's vinyl records. They kept the blinds closed to protect their expensive sound system, a holdover from their city life. One evening in late September, Rhys was at a gig in Bangor, not due back until the early hours. Claire spent the night curled up on the sofa, binge-watching a crime drama. The TV's glow, the only light in the room. She dozed off around 10 p.m., the show still playing. But a sound snapped her awake at 11:50 p.m. A slow, deliberate knocking, like knuckles rapping on wood. It came from the direction of the kitchen. Claire muted the TV, her heart quickening. She assumed it was a neighbor, perhaps annoyed by the noise, though the nearest house was a mile away. She slipped on her cardigan and padded to the front door, rehearsing an apology. Peering through the peephole, she saw only the empty lane, lit faintly by a street lamp. The knocking came again, sharper now, from the kitchen. Claire frowned, her practical mind racing. Had she left the window open? She hadn't checked the blinds that evening. Flipping on the kitchen light, she froze. Through the large window, a woman stared back, her long red hair hanging like wet ropes around a pale, gaunt face. Her mouth twisted into a grimacing sneer, revealing a few jagged, rotten teeth. She wore a dark, tattered overcoat, her eyes sunken and unblinking. Claire's breath caught. This was no neighbor. The woman's voice rasped through the glass, low and strained. "Let me in. I'm hurt." Claire's stomach churned. Her grandparents, Irish immigrants, had told her stories of banshees, female spirits who wailed to herald death. She had laughed them off as folklore, but this figure, with her eerie presence, matched the tales too closely. The woman tapped the glass harder, her nails scraping. "Let me in," she croaked again. Claire shook her head, backing away. "I'll get help," she stammered, though she didn't mean it. The woman's grimace widened. "What kind of woman are you?" she hissed, her voice echoing unnaturally, as if it came from inside the house. Claire ran to the bedroom, grabbed her phone and dialed 999, her hands trembling. As she spoke to the operator, the knocking stopped, replaced by a low, keening wail that sent shivers down her spine. She sat on the bed, clutching a pillow, whispering prayers she hadn't said since childhood. The wailing faded, and Claire peered at the bedroom window, the blinds still drawn. A shadow moved behind them, slow and deliberate. "You think you're too good?" The voice taunted, muffled but clear. Claire's heart pounded. She didn't dare look. She waited, frozen, until red and blue lights flashed outside, and the police knocked on the front door. The police, 2 officers, a man and a woman, listened patiently as Claire recounted the night's events, her voice shaky. She described the woman's red hair, grimacing mouth and tattered overcoat, her words tumbling out in a rush. The officers exchanged glances, suggesting it might have been a local vagrant, perhaps drunk or confused. They checked the garden and lane but found no footprints, no signs of anyone. "We'll review the CCTV from the village," the male officer said, jotting notes. "Stay safe, lock the doors." Claire nodded, her skepticism warring with the fear still gripping her. She locked the door behind them, double-checked the windows, and left every light on until Reese returned at 4 a.m., his guitar case slung over his shoulder. "You sure it wasn't just a dream?" Reese asked, his dark eyes gentle but doubtful. Claire shook her head, the memory of the woman's sneer too vivid. She didn't sleep that night, replaying the voice, the knocking, the wail. For the next few days, she tried to push it aside, focusing on unpacking boxes and tending the garden. Reese was home, filling the house with music, but Claire felt uneasy when alone. On the third night, Reese had another gig, leaving her in the quiet house. She kept the TV off, the silence heavy. Around midnight, a faint melody drifted through the room. A music box, a small antique Reese had bought at a flea market, playing its tinkling tune unprompted. Claire's breath hitched. The box sat on a shelf, untouched, its crank still. She approached it, her hands shaking, and stopped the music. The silence returned, but then the kitchen light flickered, dimming and brightening in slow pulses. Claire checked the bulb, the wiring. Everything was fine. She told herself it was an electrical fault, but her heart wasn't convinced. The next evening, alone again, she heard the bathroom tap running, a steady stream when no one had touched it. She turned it off, her fingers cold, and noticed the mirror fogged, as if someone had breathed on it. No one was there. Claire avoided the bathroom for the rest of the night, sleeping with the bedroom door locked. A week after the encounter, the police called. "We checked the CCTV," the officer said. "There was a woman matching your description outside your house that night, but she only appeared on the camera by your lane. No trace of her coming or going, like she vanished." Claire's stomach dropped. She thanked the officer and hung up, her mind racing. If it wasn't a banshee, it was something unnatural. If it was a banshee, someone she loved was in danger. She thought of her family, her parents in Cardiff, her sister in London, her aging grandmother in Dublin. The thought of losing them tightened her chest. She didn't tell Reese about the call, not wanting to fuel his skepticism. But the house felt different now, its coziness replaced by a creeping dread. October settled over the valley, the hills ablaze with autumn reds and golds. Claire tried to reclaim normalcy, cooking meals with Reese, reading by the stove. But the house no longer felt like a sanctuary. The subtle disturbances continued, always when she was alone. The music box played its haunting tune at odd hours, stopping when she approached. Lights flickered, not just in the kitchen, but in the hallway, casting shadows that seemed to move. One night, as she washed dishes, the kitchen window rattled, though no wind stirred outside. She didn't look, afraid of what she'd see, but the memory of the banshee's grimace haunted her. Reese noticed her unease, but chalked it up to stress from the move. "You're imagining things," he said, strumming his guitar. "Old houses creak, that's all." Claire wanted to believe him, but the incidents were too frequent, too specific. She began researching banshees, digging into her grandparents' stories. In Celtic lore, a banshee's wail foretold death, often for a family member. Some said they appeared as hags, others as young women, their cries echoing by rivers or wells. The house's garden bordered a small stream, and Claire wondered if that was why the Banshee came. She avoided the garden at night, keeping the blinds tightly shut. One evening, alone while Reese was at a rehearsal, Claire heard the knocking again. Slow, deliberate, from the bedroom window. She stayed in the living room, her heart racing. But the knocks grew louder, insistent. "Let me in," the voice rasped, the same strained croak she'd heard before. Claire clutched her phone, too scared to call anyone, afraid to move. The knocking stopped, but a low wail rose, drifting through the walls like a cold wind. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Go away," over and over. When she finally checked the window, nothing was there, but the blinds were slightly askew, as if someone had pushed them. The next day, Claire visited the village library, searching for local legends. An old book mentioned banshees haunting families with Irish roots, their presence tied to water and sorrow. Claire's grandmother had always said their family was touched by the old ways, but Claire had dismissed it. Now, she wasn't sure. She bought salt and sage, scattering them around the house as her grandmother once taught her, hoping to ward off whatever lingered. The disturbances lessened for a few days, but the air felt heavy, as if the Banshee was waiting. Claire began to dread being alone, counting the hours until Reese returned each night. November brought rain, the stream swelling and the garden muddy. Claire's fear grew, not just for herself, but for her family. She called her parents and sister daily, checking on them, her voice tight with worry. They were fine, but her grandmother's health was failing, her heart weak from years of strain. Claire didn't tell them about the Banshee, afraid they'd think her unhinged. Reese, sensing her anxiety, stayed home more, but his gigs still took him away. The disturbances persisted, water dripping from the bathroom tap, the music box playing at 2 a.m., shadows shifting behind the blinds. Claire stopped sleeping, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. One night, alone again, Claire heard the wail before the knocking, a piercing, mournful sound that seemed to come from the stream. She stayed in bed, covers pulled tight, but the bedroom window rattled violently. "You can't hide," the voice hissed, closer now, as if inside the room. Claire's phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Gran's in hospital. It's bad." Her heart sank. She called her sister, learning their grandmother had suffered a heart attack. Claire wanted to drive to Dublin, but a storm had flooded the roads, trapping her in the valley. She sat up all night, the Banshee's wail fading but never gone, a constant reminder of her fear. The next morning, her sister called again. Their grandmother had passed in the night. Claire's knees buckled, grief mixing with guilt. Had the Banshee been warning her? Could she have done something? She didn't tell her sister about the entity, unable to bear the thought of explaining. Reese returned that day, holding her as she cried, but he didn't believe her stories of the Banshee. "It's just coincidence," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Claire wanted to agree, but the house felt alive with something she couldn't name. The music box played that night, unprompted, its tune slow and mournful. Claire unplugged it, hiding it in a drawer, but the lights flickered in response, as if mocking her. Days later, the police called with an update. The CCTV footage showed the red-haired woman outside their house, but no other cameras in the village captured her. "It's like she appeared and vanished," the officer said, puzzled. Claire nodded, her throat tight. She didn't tell Reese, knowing he'd dismiss it. The Banshee's presence lingered, not in overt terror, but in small, unsettling ways. The tap dripping, the blinds swaying, a faint wail on the wind. Claire began to wonder if the Banshee was tied to her family's Irish blood, or to the house itself. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching, waiting for the next death. Winter settled over Snowdonia, the hills dusted with snow, the stream icy at its edges. Claire mourned her grandmother, attending the funeral in Dublin when the roads cleared. She didn't speak of the Banshee, but the grief weighed heavy, tangled with questions about what she'd seen. Back in the house, the disturbances continued, subtle but persistent. The bathroom tap turned on at odd hours, water pooling in the sink. The lights flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance. Once, Claire found the music box on the shelf again, though she'd left it in the drawer. She threw it out, but the next night, a faint melody echoed from nowhere. Reese remained skeptical, blaming old wiring and Claire's stress. "You're grieving," he said, his voice kind but dismissive. Claire stopped arguing, but she felt the Banshee's presence, a cold thread woven into the house. She researched more, learning that Banshees sometimes lingered with families, their keening a mark of fate. The stream outside seemed to hum at night, its flow louder when Claire was alone. She began sleeping with earplugs, the blinds nailed shut. But the house felt alive, its walls holding secrets she couldn't unravel. One night, alone while Reese was at a gig, Claire heard the wail again, softer now, almost sorrowful. She didn't look at the windows, didn't move, but the air grew cold, the lights dimming. "Leave me alone," she whispered, her voice breaking. The wail stopped, but a shadow passed behind the kitchen blinds, slow and deliberate. Claire didn't check, didn't call the police. She knew they wouldn't find anything. The Banshee was hers to bear, a reminder of loss and the thin veil between worlds. Claire and Reese stayed in the house, though she considered leaving. The disturbances were less frequent, but never gone. A dripping tap, a flickering bulb, a faint cry on the wind. She didn't tell her family, not wanting to burden them with her fear. Sometimes she wondered if the Banshee was real or if grief had twisted her mind. But the CCTV footage, the voice, the wail, they were too vivid to dismiss. Claire learned to live with the unease, locking the doors each night, listening for the stream's hum. The Banshee had come and gone, leaving death in its wake, but its shadow lingered, a quiet haunt in the heart of the Welsh hills.